Good evening. Welcome to those who just joined. We have about 5 minutes till the meeting starts. So get up and stretch or grab coffee, tea, whatever your afternoon choice of beverages. And we'll start in 5 minutes. We'll start in a couple minutes. Give folks some time to join. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Isabel. Buenas tardes. We'll start in just 1 minute. Give everyone time to come in. Hope you're all having a good evening. Hope your week is going well so far. All right, I see that it's 5:30, so we can get this show on the road. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the 43rd Community Steering Committee for South Fresno. I'm joined here by my colleagues, Amy Ramos and Liz Lev from Harder & Company, and we have a couple of our colleagues also joining in to watch as observers. I know we've gone through this many times, but it's always helpful to go over instructions, especially if people who haven't joined for a while are coming back in. So before we get started, I'm going to go through some logistics for accessing interpretation. So in your Zoom controls, if you're accessing the call through your computer, in your Zoom controls, you want to click interpretation, which is located at the bottom right-hand side of your control panel. Click the language you'd like to hear. So you would choose English or Spanish. Please remember that we are now doing simultaneous interpretation, which means everyone must be in a channel, whether it's English or Spanish. Otherwise, you won't hear the meeting. Please ensure that mute original audio is not selected so you can hear attendees who join through the phone. And if you have any questions, of course, please you can raise your hand or use a chat feature and type in your question. We'll be monitoring those regularly. So I'll pause and let the interpreter provide the instructions in Spanish.
Hola, buenas tardes a todos y bienvenido a la reunión del Comité Directivo del Sur de Fresno. Una vez más, vamos a darles instrucciones para poder acceder a la interpretación. Si usted está por computadora, buscará el icono de un mundo que aparece abajo de su pantalla. Luego seleccionará Español y los invitamos a silenciar el audio original. De esa manera no está escuchando dos voces. Would you like me to give them in case they're on the tablet or phone?
Yes, go for it. I'll move to the next slide.
Great. Y también si usted está por tableta o por teléfono, el proceso es diferente. Va a buscar los 3 puntos que aparecen en su pantalla. Luego seleccionará interpretación de lenguajes. Luego seleccionará español. Y cuando ha acabado, arriba de su pantalla hacia la mano derecha, encontrará un botón que dice Done en inglés o listo. Selecciónelo y debería de estar escuchando en español. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Amelia. And now I'll give the English interpretation of those instructions. So if you're joining us on Zoom with an app on your phone or tablet, you will click the 3 dots in your Zoom controls. It's usually located at the bottom of your screen. It looks like this over here. You want to click language interpretation, and from the menu, select the language you would like to hear. So either English or Spanish. Again, everyone must be in a channel in order for you to hear the meeting. And also ensure that mute original audio is not selected so you can hear folks who call in through phone. All right. As a reminder, please make sure your screen name reflects this naming convention. If you are a CSC member and or a resident, if you're a CSC member, please put CSC in front of your full name. If you're a resident and a CSC member, please put an R in front of your full name.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes, Estela.
¿Se escucha nada en el canal de español?
Sí.
Sam, can you hear me? We're having a little bit of difficulty with the Spanish channel. Sounds like some folks are not able to hear anything in Spanish.
Oh, okay, 1 second. Let's troubleshoot that.
I am on the Spanish channel and I'm able to hear
Se
Jose Luis.
escucha.
I believe that he had his mic off for a moment. So, you know, we're still having those bloopers.
No worries. I think technical difficulties will be for everything. Okay, awesome. I'm glad we got that sorted out.
And Señora Estela is okay as well?
Sí, escucho la interpretación de español.
Gracias.
De nada.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, let me get us back to the slideshow. Okay, so for naming conventions, this is an important reminder, especially if you are participating in the stipend program. This allows us to track attendance properly. So again, if you're a CSC member, put CSC in front of your full name. If you're a resident and a CSC member, please put an R in front of your full name. All other participants, please use this naming convention with your first and last name, followed by your organization or agency. I'm sorry, 1 second. And just a few reminders for the virtual setting. So please ensure your mic is on mute unless you are speaking or planning to speak. If you're calling in by phone, you will need to use *6 to unmute or mute yourself. If you have a question, you can raise your hand or type it in the chat. We'll be monitoring those regularly. And if you want to raise your hand and you're calling in by phone, you can use *9. And as a friendly reminder, residents who are participating in the stipend program must stay in the meeting for 75% of the meeting to be eligible for the stipend. So today we're meeting for 2 hours, which means you will need to stay at least 90 minutes to be eligible for the stipend. And I'm just going to quickly go over some group agreements to ensure we have a productive call tonight. I do want to point out, and we could talk about this later on, that we'd like to revisit this in the next meeting to ensure that this is still relevant for the group and in case there are any updates we'd like to make. So first, let's help each other achieve the meeting goals by focusing on solutions, opportunities, and productive dialogue. We're a large group, so we want to make sure everyone has a chance to participate. So if you tend to speak up a lot during the meetings, we encourage you to make space for others. And if you tend to stay quiet during the meeting, we encourage you to take up space and share your ideas with the questions with the group. Please remember to be civil and respectful. It's okay to disagree. But this can be done in a respectful manner. Let's try to stay on point and on time by keeping your comments brief and to the point. This will also allow space for others to speak as well. And of course, whenever there's a disagreement, please honor each other's humanity and dignity, right? We're humans before positions or roles on our names here. And lastly, let's do our best to seek common ground and find opportunities to identify solutions. After all, that's all why we're here in the first place. Okay, so this is our agenda for today. We'll start off with introductions, then follow up with reviewing the action items. We will spend some time talking about the budget, a continued budget discussion. This will be a shortened discussion just to sort of prepare us for a longer, more comprehensive discussion in May. Then we'll have standing updates. We have a lot to cover there, and then we'll wrap up and do next steps. So as a reminder, these agendas are set during the agenda setting meetings, which happen usually a week after CSC meetings. This month is a bit weird because we moved the CSC meeting. But that is the opportunity for you all to submit your agenda topics or any questions you have about setting the agenda. You can also email any suggested agenda topics. And we ask that you do that as soon as you think of that so that everyone has time to prepare materials if needed and translation accordingly. However, with that said, we do want to make space in case there is some urgent agenda item that anyone would like to propose today. If not, we'll stick with what we have scheduled here. Okay, I don't see any raised hands, so I'm gonna take it that we're all good here. Awesome. Okay, so now I will pass it off to Ryan and then Eric, who is our co-host tonight, for some welcoming remarks. Then we'll get started. Ryan?
Yeah, thanks, Jem. Great introduction to tonight's meeting. Great to see everybody once again, and I'll keep my comments brief. So happy to turn it over to Eric for a co-host introduction.
Yeah, Eric Payne, resident and co-facilitator this evening.
Awesome, thank you both. Now we'll move on to the first thing on the agenda, which is reviewing the action items. So I'll hand it off to Steph.
Thanks so much, Jem. And just as a reminder to folks, this is just a ritual check-in on some of the action items we have left over from previous meetings. I'm going to share my screen here. And you can find these action items located on our main community page, right here in this corner. And so I think as many folks know, this action item tracker is broken up by things that are in progress and things that are still complete. And so I'll just go over some more recent ones and ones that we hope have updates on or hope to see them very soon. Two of the comments were related to vitro architectural glass pile inspection and the lab results. The CSC had requested to see more information kind of in conjunction with those lab results of seeing more information related to the permitting and enforcement process. And so as the latest update on that is we did hear from the lab that at the end of last week, they had our samples and we're working on them. So we hope really soon here to kind of see those lab results and then bring them back to the CSC in the next meeting. And then another update I just wanted to highlight is the city and the Air District are moving forward with funding the truck reroute proposals. And tonight we'll hear an update from the city on kind of progress on that. And then there were 3 comments in our pending items that are related to our stationary source presentation that we had. And we are working with the district, and then also very excited to work with Genevieve to kind of bring improvements to that presentation based on feedback that we received regarding more information on health impacts, spatial analysis. So seeing more about information about sensitive receptors, and then also more information on kind of year-to-year comparisons of emissions. And again, we'll look forward to working with Genevieve and seeing an updated presentation in our April CSC meeting. And moving on to some of our recent completed items, there was a request or an action item related to ongoing air monitoring data updates and on an update on our outreach plan. And we did have a subcommittee meeting on the 9th of March, and we provided updates on the outreach plan and then also some of the data that's been collected from these community air monitors. And we'll hear an update from Jamie tonight on that. Also from Jamie, we'll hear an update on plans for a residential lawn and garden event that we're planning in Fresno. So we'll hear that later tonight during standing updates. And then also a recent action, there was a request for a Measure P presentation at the next Urban Greening and Vegetative Barriers Subcommittee. And so we're really appreciative to have Kimberly McCoy present on Measure P at the February Urban Greening and Vegetative Barriers Subcommittee meeting. And those are all the recent actions kind of in this action item tracker. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't see anything in the chat.
Awesome, thanks, Jen. And if anyone thinks of anything during the meeting, feel free to pop it into the chat or just email us. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. All right, so I'm gonna hand it off to Eric to get us set up for the next item, which will be the continued budget discussion, followed by Ryan, who I think will be presenting briefly before we open it up. Eric, take it away.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hold on again, I'm having some. How about now? Thumbs up?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I couldn't hear you all. Okay. Yeah, so I can't see the item for some reason.
Oh, it's on the budget discussion. Ryan, will you be presenting on it? Do you want to share the screen?
I think on this one, it was more just kind of talking in general. So we were planning on having a more robust discussion, and this was really going to be like the initial conversation. And there was some slides, and I can bring it up. It's going to use as talking points. So do that. Hold on one second. No. Yeah. Let me zoom in. All right. Can you see it, Eric?
Yeah, I can see it now.
Okay.
All right, yeah. So we were just gonna open it up, the discussion, the presentation, and then the discussion. And if folks could, I guess, hold their questions to the end of the presentation, that'd be really helpful.
Yeah. So thanks. We're looking to kind of jumpstart the conversation that we're going to have in a couple months. This is in response to a suggestion from the steering committee meetings at an agenda setting meeting to, hopefully have some input at this setting, so that way when we have a more fuller discussion in May, that we'll have more answers to questions, comments that people may have in response to that. So just a brief kind of history on kind of what we've done in the past. And so in November, we had the high level overview of the AB 617 and the incentives budgets. And then in December, we provided some more in-depth information, as well as us having a more in-depth conversation with the Community Steering Committee on the budget for the Community Emission Reduction Program, and received some good feedback from steering committee members. And then just in February, the CSV members, like I mentioned, as part of that agenda setting meeting, asked for us to have a bigger discussion about what opportunities there are to look at where we are at with funding for the different categories within the South Central Community Emission Reduction Program, and maybe what opportunities there are to shift funding or provide funding for different types of things. And so like I said, to kickstart that conversation, we're having this discussion tonight. So we have some, provided some information on, where we're at with regards to how much has been spent and how much is remaining. And, the big point here is there's just a lot of work that needs to still get done. And the steering committee members have been providing us a lot of input into getting these things moving. And so I think we're in a good position, and then we're working closely with CARB to get some of these project plans approved, which will allow us to work with you on spending those funds. And so while that number doesn't look big, I think there's a lot of opportunity over these next 6 to 8 months to really move a lot of these forward and start funding a lot of things. And so the different metrics that we have here, and I want to thank Stephanie for all her hard work to making this more visually represented, to make it easier to understand where we're at. And when we talk about the emission or the PM reductions, it's really about what the commitments are and versus what we've actually gotten as far as the emission reductions. I know that had been a topic that had been raised. Is that actual emission reductions that we've gotten, or what we're committed to? And so just a little bit of information on that. So kind of going back and, what our commitment, to the SERP incentive measure participation process. And so as you've seen on a monthly basis, we post to our website and update the tracker that basically every single one of the measures in the South Central Community Emission Reduction Program, and not only the incentives, but also the other measures, including enforcement and so many others. But specific to the incentives, we include the funding that has been provided for the individual measures. And if there are things like lawnmowers, how many lawnmowers have been replaced as part of that measure. On a quarterly basis, the district provides updates on the implementation progress, and asks for input on opportunities for adjustment. And this is part of that process that we're doing, and working with you. And then in May, November timeframes, we'll have a bigger district and community steering committee measure, or community steering committee collaboration to possibly adapt and tailor some of the CERT measures where there's need. And that's once again where we need a lot of this information from all of you. And then in September, we plan on presenting, well, every September we bring back the annual report that we're required to submit to the California Resources Board as part of the ongoing implementation of the program. And those reports, as you've seen in the past, includes the opportunities that we found to elevate any challenges that we've seen, and what work's been done to customize the implementation based on the extensive feedback that we're getting from the Community Steering Committee. I need to apologize. So I have a camera that looks forward, but for some reason it doesn't want to work for me. So I'm having to work off my laptop camera. And so I apologize for the side profile that you're getting tonight. So kind of the crux of this item is really like, how can we tailor the May discussion and really flesh out the budget dialogue that you're looking for. And so some of the stuff that we're currently working on and working on updating is clarifying the timelines in the funding deadlines set by the state for spending the community emission reduction program incentives. For example, what's CARB's expectation on meeting these required deadlines? Making sure that we're being as transparent as we can be on where we're at with the individual measure implementation progress and opportunities that we're seeing or opportunities that you're sharing with us, and then any challenges that we're facing with anything, to make sure that everybody's aware of what's going on. One of the examples, and this is, I think, hopefully what we're really wanting to dive into and get more information on is, with the individual status of the measures, where the funding isn't moving, where we have programs that are approved, and explain to the steering committee why that's so, and then take feedback from the steering committee on what are the next steps, what do we want to do with those things. So we're going to have a process for that, soliciting that guidance from all of you, and receiving recommendations from the steering committee on where there may be opportunities to shift some of that funding, and if there's any new or different needs that need to be considered. Those are all things that we're looking for feedback from the steering committee on. One of the recent examples, and I'm sure all of you have seen that, one of the things that was really highly prioritized with this steering committee was school air filtration. And we're seeing that, through both the federal and state funding that was provided to schools, as a result of the pandemic. And there's been just a lot of work with upgrading HVAC systems at schools, as well as providing in-classroom filtration. So, while this steering committee prioritized it and put a considerable sum of money towards supporting getting additional air filtration, we're in discussions with the school districts in the boundary on whether that's still going to be a need, or if there's a need, or what that's looking like. And so, going to bring that back to the steering committee to talk about more. And if there's not, well, what are some recommendations on what to do with that funding? Lastly, what is missing to help clarify any of the information that we've provided previously, or what we're providing tonight to help with that discussion. Like I said, we're trying to get way out in advance of this to make it as productive as it can be, and getting as much feedback from all of you.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you so much. I just wanted to add a little bit more context to remind folks. I know it's been a month since we met last time, but based on CSC member feedback, we heard loud and clear that you all want to make sure that the May meeting is really designed to meet your needs. And so at this point, whatever unanswered questions you have or anything that needs to be clarified, now is the time to share. Like, how can the Air District better prepare that May meeting to provide you with the data and the answers and the clarification that you need? So at this point, we're going to be taking in all the information that you have, all the suggestions that you have, and using that to really tailor how the May meeting gets organized, the level of information that gets shared, whether or not we have breakout sessions, etc. Just want to make sure that you all remember that this is your meeting, CSC members, and it is your time to let the Air District know what are the things that you want to hear in this May budget conversation. Eric, we weren't sure if you wanted to add anything else, any other context. I see Ed has his hand raised.
Yeah, so now we can open it up for discussion if there are folks that want to weigh in.
Ed, I see your hand is raised. Go for it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that would be very helpful is if we could see a year's worth of what our current sensors are doing and what they look like, and to get an idea of maybe where the places are that could use some additional effort and money to move forward to reduce those emissions in our communities. And I think this could be done ahead of time. It'd be nice if we could put together that piece in Spanish and in English, and that way we could begin to think about how that might look for the next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Dr. Curry, I see your hand is up. Go for it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for putting the tracker together. I think that's very helpful. I have a couple of questions about the numbers. And so looking at what's been approved, looking at what is currently spent, and then comparing that to the effectiveness of reaching our target goals. Is it realistic that based on the amount of money that's been allocated, that we're going to hit the target goals? Based on what we see from here, based on the percentage of the target goals that we are looking at right now. Secondly, I want to ask about the school air filtration. And I know we've talked extensively before about some of the challenges that Fresno Unified had, but I was distressed to hear the amount of money that's been provided and the fact that the filtration did not seem to meet the standard that it needed to in order to protect our children. So I'm curious, are they receiving guidance or direction or information that would help them select better products that would actually serve our kids in protecting them with the filtration? Are they open to receiving a direction? And if so, what would be the next steps in order to make sure that we get better outcomes for that? And if we are still contributing to that effort, if we were to move the funds, again, are we covering the portable units that are prevalent in and around Fresno, specifically West Fresno? And if not, what would we be moving the funds to cover that? So, and then finally, are there any new funding sources given some of the legislation that's recently passed? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Curry. We're noting all of these to be sure. I'm sure we can address most, if not all, of those questions during the meeting, the budget meeting in May. But I want to ask the Air District if there are any immediate responses to any of her questions that we can discuss today.
No, that's exactly the type of feedback, and I was just typing in, but thank you for letting me chime in verbally. Dr. Correa, those are the exact questions that we are looking for, and in response to that, yeah, we are in communications with Fresno Unified, and there's been some changeover with some of the people that we were working with, and so now we're getting in contact with some new people over there to continue the discussions that we've been having with them about this very important topic. I know there's been a lot of media around this subject in regards to one of the school districts in the community, and so. But yeah, we want to definitely try to get that information from all the school districts, and so that way we can provide all that information at one time to the steering committee. But those are great questions, and there's we've talked about I know several times here, and fortunately there are definitely new funding sources that are coming in and being made available and are being talked about in the upcoming budget, and so we are definitely looking at that, and how those can be used to supplement this ongoing work here and used to the maximum benefit of the residents of the South Central 8617 community.
Yeah, thank you. I think part of my question, which I didn't maybe clarify, is whether or not there's a sense of accountability for the funds that Fresno Unified has received, and if any of that accountability is tied to receiving any direction specifically from the Air Resources Board or the Air Pollution Control District that would help push the importance of getting filtration units in the schools where they are supposed to be. So.
Yeah. We've definitely written that down, Dr. Curry, and that'll be discussed during that meeting.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Dr. Curry. Those are all great questions. Does anyone else have any questions or comments that they'd like us to consider and keep in mind for the May budget discussion? And I know Naimeen is not present today, but she was actually the one who requested to put this agenda item for today to kind of tee us up for May. She was wondering, and she would like to solicit from the group what it is in your mind, what you feel is considered participatory budget. How do you envision the CSC and folks from the community participating in the budget process? This is also something we'll sort of delve into in May, but just want to kind of get some feelers tonight to see if there's any thoughts around that. What do you consider a participatory budget process? Or how would you like to participate in any capacity with a budget process? Estela, I see your hand is up. Go for it.
Sí, nomás quería comentar sobre los fondos que les dan al distrito de las escuelas. Pues sí les dan los fondos a las escuelas, pero en sí ellos no están haciendo nada como dando la información a los padres o a los maestros, directores o en las escuelas. Ellos no están haciendo nada para informarnos de cómo está el aire, cómo tenemos que hacer para informarnos cómo está el aire afuera. Y eso es importante para los niños. Entonces, no sé de qué sirve que les den los fondos si ellos no están haciendo lo que deben que hacer. Ese es mi comentario. Gracias.
Thank you, Estela. We've noted that. Sounds like there's a lot of follow-up we need to do with the school air monitoring and filtration system. So we'll be sure to include that in the next discussion. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments, concerns you'd like to share? Greg, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I wonder why we're chasing the school districts when they got millions of dollars to do just this kind of work. Why would we want to consider? I mean, we reached out to them very early on. We begged the trustees to have conversations with us. They did. They said their staff is going to follow up. Just, why would we consider looking at this? So it's just something to ponder. Particularly because they got a lot of money in COVID cares money to do just this kind of work. So that's it.
Ryan, I saw you unmuted. Did you want to respond to that?
No, I think that's I think the only reason, I think the main reason why we want to continue to talk about it is because it is such a high priority, and wanting to address what Estella said is hearing more about what is going on and using this not only as a forum for potentially funding things, but also for people to share information and to know more of what's going on, and maybe at the same time providing, sharing their experiences, their lived experiences, where Stella's saying that maybe the communication hasn't been as good. So maybe by bringing these different agency partners and, providing that, they can also take feedback, like, hey, is there a way that you can communicate what's going on with the parents and of the children in the schools within the community? What's going on with efforts to improve the air quality within the classrooms, and so that's where I kind of see it. And I mean, if they do, I agree, Greg. There probably isn't, and that's what we've heard from them, that there really isn't much need for the funding that has been allocated in the community emission reduction program. But not wanting us as their district to say that on their behalf, but giving them the opportunity to express that themselves.
Thanks, Ryan. Bill, I see your hand is up, and then we'll go to Lily after you. Go for it, Bill.
Yes, I was wondering, during particularly the last few years, we've had forest fires. We've had discussions about perhaps funding for residents for filtration in their homes, especially the last 2 years, the kids really haven't been in school that much, to where if there was funding, at least for maybe low economic income people, because the kids are at home more than they're at school. And, if they have to go to one of those centers, they can't go to work or whatever. So if there was some funding available, perhaps in some fashion, we could pay for at least a portable filtration machine or something. There had been some discussion about homemade ones and that sort of thing, but I was curious if any more thoughts had been given towards a program to enhance the filtration in people's homes, particularly if they couldn't afford it. That was it.
No, I appreciate you sharing that, Bill. And those are the type of ideas that we're looking to hear from steering committee members, because if there isn't an opportunity to spend the funding at schools, there may be other opportunities like the one that Bill is recommending. And we did include in other community emission reduction programs, and I've seen it across the state. As the impacts of wildfire smoke are continuing to be really, really significant challenges to everybody living in the valley. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely something in what Jen was talking about, and working with the steering committee on recommendations on what existing funding for measures, and maybe what are some additional opportunities, or the shifting of funds to other things.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Ryan. Lilia, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Sí, buenas tardes a todos. Es verdad lo que está diciendo nuestra compañera Estela y lo que estaba diciendo ahorita el compañero. Tenemos que darle prioridad a las escuelas, y no es que no quedamos. Si ustedes ya dieron fondos, tienen que darle seguimiento a esos fondos que ustedes dieron. El que el Distrito Unificado tenga muchos fondos relacionados con el COVID, ese es otro tema diferente con los fondos que le han dado a ellos con lo del COVID. Si ustedes dieron fondos relacionados con lo que es los monitores que tienen adentro de las escuelas y no nos están dando información, yo pienso que ustedes también tienen que usar como un tipo de monitoreo como ustedes mismos, para así mismo informarnos a nosotros lo que está pasando dentro de las escuelas alrededor, si es que adentro tienen esos monitores que nosotros necesitamos saber de ellos, porque es verdad lo que dice Estela, mandamos a nuestros hijos, no sabemos cómo está el medio ambiente en el momento. Entonces, si uno no se da cuenta porque tengo un teléfono inteligente, no nos vamos a dar cuenta si la escuela no nos está notificando. Yo pienso que tenemos que darle seguimiento a todo eso y todo es importante para nosotros cuando se trata de la calidad del aire.
Thank you, Lydia. We definitely noted that. Brian, I see you shared something in the chat. Do you want to share a bit about it?
Oh, sure. Those are just, we at Carver also talk about participatory budgeting and what forms that can take. So these are just some resources we've been looking at. None are like Carver approved or anything, but just give different takes on how you can implement participatory budgeting. So I thought the group wanted to read into those docs that it might help out to spur the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. These are all great questions and comments, everyone. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments thinking about how we can best prepare everyone for the budget discussion in May? If not, no problem. We will be sending out a survey probably the end of next week. It'll be another opportunity for you all to give your input, ask any questions or comments that you want us to consider as we prepare. We do have a few months, so we'll send out that survey next week, and we'll keep it open for a couple weeks in case something comes to mind for you all that you want to share and you want us to keep in mind for the May budget discussion. So please be on the lookout for that in your email. It'll, of course, be in English and Spanish. Are there any questions? Eric, did you want to add anything else around this piece?
No, I didn't. We can transition to the next subject if you're ready.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so we'll move on to, thank you everyone for your contribution to the conversation. We'll move on to standing updates now, starting with the Air District. Ryan, will that be you providing any updates or someone else from the team?
I think our main updates are going to be with some of the other subcommittee updates.
Okay, sounds good. We'll move on to the trees subcommittee. I believe Kimberly was supposed to provide that update. Kim, oh yeah, I see her on there.
Yeah, so the update is that there was a presentation that was done by myself on the implementation of Measure P regarding the goals and progress, reviewed the changes to the urban greening and vegetative barriers RFPs. Subcommittee seemed to appreciate addition of the outreach and community engagement components. And also subcommittee provided further verbal feedback for proposed improvements, particularly on the technical requirements of the RFP. Next steps, district to hold subcommittee meeting once written feedback was incorporated and translated into new RFP. And also district still working with individuals on their comments and will doodle for the next meeting as soon as a new draft is ready. Those are my updates.
Awesome, thank you, Kim. Are there any questions regarding the tree subcommittee? All right, we'll move on to the next subcommittee for truck rerouting. Will someone be providing an update for that? Scott?
Good evening, everyone. Scott Mosier, City of Fresno. Not a lot has changed. We're staying on course with the truck rerouting study. Our goal has been to bring forward to our Fresno City Council a package containing both the consultant study for truck rerouting and then also the agreement with UC Merced for health study in one package. So we're working toward that, basically just dealing with the finer points of the language on the interagency agreement And then we'll be able to move forward. Our current target date for city council is April 21st. That is the first meeting in April. And normally we have about a 3-week lead time. Once all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and the parties agree, it takes about 3 weeks to place the item on the agenda with final legal review and such. So we're right on track, looking forward to that work, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Scott regarding the truck rerouting subcommittee? Awesome, thank you, Scott. Next, we have the land use subcommittee. Any updates from that subcommittee?
So we've been, this is Greg Barfield with the City of Fresno. We've been meeting with the Air Board. We took the suggestions of the committee, the CSC, and put it in non-planner ease. And made it more in community ease. And we believe that we have a good draft, and now it's in that translation phase. So thanks for your patience, and we look forward to, once it's translated, the Air Board will reach out and put together a subcommittee meeting.
Thank you, Greg. Are there any questions for Greg regarding the land use subcommittee? Okay, we'll move on to community air monitoring and outreach. I believe Jamie will be providing that update.
Hi, everybody. I appreciate the comments that were made by Lilia and others with regard to the schools and some of the challenges that we've been having. We did have an air quality monitoring and outreach meeting last week, I think, if I'm not getting confused. And we've given a little bit of an update that I'll go through quickly. We have directly met with all of the schools in South Fresno that have air monitoring equipment at their school site. We are now scheduling additional meetings with either admin or principals or teachers to make sure that they know what to do with the information that's coming off of those sites, how to get that information, and to make sure they understand how that information should be used within the school to guide whether or not students stay inside or let outside for sports and recess and that type of thing. We're beginning, so hopefully some of this will be communicated kind of on down the chain. We're beginning to include direction to these schools on how they can put this information into newsletters and also share it at parent meetings. We are looking at also having a presence at some of those parent meetings or some of the little teacher in-services that happens, the teacher trainings that happen. We're looking at doing some emailing through this tool called Peach Jar. It's actually, some of you who have kids might be familiar with it, but it will allow us to send emails out to parents through kind of the school. So it's not an email coming directly from the Valley Air District. It's kind of coming through the service that most schools are already using. Not all schools are using it, but many schools within the boundaries are using it. And we're going to have put together a flyer. We did show the flyer that at the outreach subcommittee meeting, and we had some feedback, some really great feedback. And so we're going to update the flyer based on that feedback. We have the flyer updated based on the feedback. Let me show that to you real quick. I'm going to share my screen because we're a little tiny bit ahead of schedule. I'm going to take a few minutes. So this is the flyer. Can you guys see it? Thumbs up if you can see it. Yep, I'm hoping. Thanks, Jem. So there's a variety of different ways that you can access the data. More and more people are familiar with the QR codes, simply because I know a lot of restaurants, and during COVID, a lot of folks were required to ask folks to use QR codes. So that's a little QR code. We also have the website down here. And then we talk a little bit about the grant funding that's out there and how you can find more about grant funding for all of the kind of public facing grants. And then more information on monitoring. This would be in English and Spanish. We are looking to put the boundary map on the back of this flyer so that folks can easily see if they're in the boundary or if they're out of the boundary. So if you have any additional suggestions for this, we have gotten some suggestions from the air monitoring outreach subcommittee, which we're incorporating. A big one was to include the boundary map on it. So that is happening, and I got to stop sharing so I can pull up my notes. All right. West Fresno Middle School will be handing out these flyers at a parent-teacher conference. Fresno Unified has committed to help distribute this flyer through their channels, including that Peach Jar service that I mentioned. At any point that we're connecting with schools, parents, the public, we hope to use this flyer and or other tools that you all feel might be of value to schools. So I agree there's a big disconnect, as Lilia said, between the information and that information getting to parents and to teachers. So we're really working at trying to get a better kind of nexus or a better plan in place for how we can get that that information out to teachers and parents. We're also looking at perhaps doing a parent survey to ask parents, hey, what's the best way for you to get this information? What are outreach tools that you think would be helpful? And then, of course, looking at text messages or other links or the signage that we do have what we call we call them reads, our real-time real-time electronic air quality display, and it actually is a display. In some cases, it usually is in a school office, but it faces outward so that anyone walking into the school who walks past that school office will see the air quality, current air quality information. We're looking at getting more of those into schools and getting them in really prime locations so that hourly data can be easily seen. So our air quality monitoring outreach subcommittee meeting went really well. I want to thank everyone for being there. We also had a really good discussion on the data that is coming off of the monitoring sites. In most cases, that information is kind of in par with either the existing monitors that were already in the area, with one exception, and that's at Edison High School. And so we have put equipment at Edison High School that will allow all of us to better understand what's going on in that area and what the air quality in that area is doing. So we have, it's called speciation data. That's super technical. Basically, it's equipment that will just help us understand, oh, when we see this spike, it's coming from diesel trucks, or it's coming from someone using a fireplace, or it's coming from a wildfire, it's coming from industry in the area, whatever it might be, it will allow us to better understand exactly what's going on. So that's all for the community air monitoring and outreach. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And then if it's okay with the committee, I've got two other really quick little updates.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much. The first one is we have been working to get a South Fresno lawnmower exchange event up and running. We've talked about it at this committee. Our goal is to eventually do 3 of them, at least 3 of them, but we want to get one going. We want to at least have one of these events. So we are tentatively working at having the first event be on May 14th. So save the date for Saturday, May 14th. And really what we're going to ask is that the committee really help us get the word out. We think that if you use your resources to talk to people that you know who live in South Fresno, about the fact that they can get a free lawnmower if they sign up to participate in the May 14th event. We think we're going to go through all the lawnmowers that we'll have available. We'll be able to have about 100 lawnmowers available. The reason it's only 100 is because of supply chain issues. That's about the most we can get within and even that, we have to wait until May timeframe to be able to get those. But we don't think we're going to have to do any real outreach other than you all telling folks that you know, your friends and family. And we definitely can have one for the raffle. So that is coming up with hopefully 2 more events planned shortly thereafter. Then the last thing I want to mention, I mentioned that mini grant where we are hoping to work with maybe some local churches, maybe a Boys and Girls Club, some of the maybe a school youth group, some of these smaller organizations to help them do some outreach on some of these grants. So we have the first draft of what we're calling our little AB 617 mini grant that I'm hoping I'll be able to share with you all in the next week or so. You can give me feedback and we can kind of tweak it. The goal is to really get those organizations that haven't really been involved in AB 617 to give them a little support, financial support, so that they can learn about it. Maybe they want to do door-to-door outreach. Maybe they want to put on a little lunch and learn event. Maybe they want to put it in their church newsletter. Maybe they want to do a school poster contest. We are open to ideas. We're planning to make the application really kind of broad and be able to give these organizations little mini grants to do some of this work, to talk to their constituents and hopefully get more knowledge about some of the grants that we have going on. I see some hands raised, so outreach on air monitoring, May 14th lawnmower exchange event, and mini grant is coming. So with that, I'll give it back to our fearless leaders.
Thank you. Before I open it up for questions and comments, I would just like to offer some feedback myself. I don't know, what is the Air District's timeline on the RFP for mini grants?
Our plan is to just open it up, and as folks come to us with good ideas, we will, until we feel like we've exhausted all the outreach, that will be, these are small grants. These are, maybe $1,000, $2,000. So we're not going to, we'll open it up. We'll give folks maybe about a month to apply for kind of round 1, but our goal is to keep having folks apply, to keep having new organizations come on board, learn about AB 617, learn about the grants. So we're not going to have a firm, like, if you don't get it in by this date, you are forever unable to participate. The goal is to maybe have this be something that's ongoing over the next, couple of years.
Okay, so is it open now or no?
It is not open now, and my goal is to send the little application form and the guidelines out to this committee and have you guys give us some feedback. And then once we get that feedback, put it on the website and have you all start kind of sharing it with your constituents, definitely by the next official CSC meeting, but maybe even before then.
Oh, okay. And then will they review for selection, or will the Air District bring like those proposed RFPs back to say, these are the ones we've selected?
If we get a huge group and we have to narrow it down, I think we would need a subcommittee of this group to kind of go through those. But I am hoping that if someone comes to us with a really good idea, that we're going to support them. We're going to hopefully, if someone wants to talk to their community about how they can take advantage of AB 617 grants or any of the air quality work being done in South Fresno, that we want to enable them to do that.
Okay, great. And then finally, because I don't want to take too much more of the conversation. I would just ask that the Air District just be mindful of streamlining the process for grassroots organizations to engage and participate. These are people who are trusted messengers in the community. They have really deep relationships with diverse populations in the community. And so I would just ask that the Air District in their selection process be very clear with the language that they use around diversity and equity. So ensuring that there are these CBOs are culturally sensitive and responsive with their engagement strategies. And so I know this might be very new for the Air District. So I know that with you leading this work, Jamie, it's going to be a really broad reach. And so I'm really excited to see what you all bring back to CSC. And then I'm going to pause for a second. And then I want to open it up to the rest of the group for any feedback or comments or concerns that they might have. And I'm going to ask that
Eric, you're muted. You got cut off.
Oh, if you could just help me identify raised hands. I see Isabella and Ed have it. So I'll go with Isabel Vargas, and then I'll transition over to Ed.
Sí, buenas tardes. Yo iba a comentar acerca de los monitores de las escuelas. Yo pregunté en la escuela cómo hacían para informarse de la calidad del aire. Y lo que ellos me dijeron es que el distrito del aire les manda alerta roja nada más cuando está el aire muy mal. Y es cuando ellos se informan cómo está la calidad del aire. Yo tengo entendido que en las escuelas tienen monitores, pero no sé por qué ellos esperan a que el distrito del aire les mande la información. Otro comentario que quería hacer, que dicen que van a poner volantes en las escuelas. Hay muchos padres que nomás dejan los niños en la calle y se van y pues no tienen acceso para entrar adentro a mirar los volantes, así es que es difícil para agarrar la información también ellos de esa manera. Que hubiera otra manera de que mandaran la información a los padres fuera bueno. Ese es mi comentario, gracias.
Thank you. We agree 100%, and we are working with the schools to try and make that process better.
Thank you, Isabel. Ed, I see your hand is up, so we'll go to you, and then we'll go to Laura after.
Thank you. Outreach is incredibly important. And one of the things that I want to convey to our CSC is I attended, and so, by the way, did Juan Carranza attend a Tune In, Tune Up 2 weeks ago in the Stockton area. And we have one coming up in Fresno on, what's the date of that?
26th.
26th. And this is an incredible event. Stockton, and every time they set up for this, they actually run as much as 400 cars through the system, checking for smog systems that are working. These are the lowest or the highest emitting vehicles in our community. And it's a great opportunity for the community members to get a little bit of a help to get a head up on smog repairs. There was a $500 or an $850 voucher given to everyone that came through to repair any smog equipment that they might have. Additionally, the Stockton CSC chose to have a small group of their CSC members actually have a booth at the Tune In, Tune Up, and they had a lawnmower on display, one of the lawnmowers, to give everyone an idea of what is available for the future. And I just want to encourage our group, and it's obviously not my decision, but I intend to participate in it again. It's an amazing event. Encourage our group to think about having some of this information available on March 26th. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ed. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ed. Laura, you're next, and then we'll go to Dr. Curry after. Go for it, Laura.
I think we'll be able to put it on the Fresno's Against Fracking listserv, the advertisement about the lawnmowers. I just need to get a flyer, and we're going to talk about it in the meeting tomorrow. And it's just something Ron Martin, the president, loves things that are electric and good for the environment. And also, we can help with the event, actually, too, the lawnmower event. All right, thanks.
Thank you so much. Are there, Dr. Curry?
Thank you, Laura. We'll be asking for that.
Yeah, my question has to do with some of the information that Jamie presented around the Edison Air Monitor. And I was just wondering if you could speak just a little bit more about what is being seen and what is triggering sort of the follow-up, and then what that follow-up really looks like. Are we placing the trailer there, or how are we capturing additional data?
I can actually let Chai jump in here. He's the expert on all things air monitoring.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, so as Jamie had mentioned earlier, we did a comparison as far as the PM 2.5 comparison within the South Central Fresno area, and we found that on average the reading at Edison was a bit higher than all the other areas. And so what we wanted to do was to take the sampler that we had at Malga Elementary. Basically what that is it just it has like a filter onto it, and then it takes the air into that filter, and then we send that filter off to a laboratory, and then they do an analysis on that to determine what is in those particulates, so that we can determine what potential sources are causing that higher reading. And so we just recently put that in place last week. I'm sorry. So we just recently put that in last week. So that'll take we'll need at least close to 2 months, maybe 1 month of monitoring that, and then sending out to a lab. That'll take another month for them to get the results back to us. So we'll see what that looks like, and we'll definitely share it with the CSC on what we find.
Thank you.
All right. Were there other questions from any of the other members?
Eric, if it's okay with you, I forgot to mention one thing. For those of you that have connections to nonprofits.
Yeah, Jim, go ahead.
Thank you so much. For those of you who have connections to nonprofits, what we did in Shafter for our lawnmower exchange is that we partnered with a Committee for a Better Shafter, and we gave them funding, and they provided hot dogs and sodas and little bags of potato chips. So everyone who came through to get their new lawnmower also got a little snack, and it was super fun. And so if you think your nonprofit might want to do that, I think we gave them $1,000 and they did 100 hot dogs or something like that. But we would love it. So keep that in the back of your mind. And if you have a nonprofit that wants to make a little bit of money and be out at the Lawnmower Exchange on May 14th, let me know.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I also think that if there are any of our environmental industrial partners who would like to partner with that CBO to help scale up that investment, that would be really great too, to see that type of partnership at some of our community outreach events.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah. And I know that I think it was mentioned, but I'm not really sure. So I just wanted to take a step back really quick. In terms of new items, our future agenda items, I know that some air districts across the state are leveraging their investment to create a chief equity and environmental justice officer within their organization to help with strategy, and to really be an internal think tank partner in these conversations. And so I would like to have that conversation with this committee, and maybe with some of the Air District board members and staff to also participate.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. Actually, yeah, we will be moving on to agenda items and next steps. But before we move on, were there any more questions for Jamie or for any updates that were shared?
No, great work, Jamie, from you and your team.
Thank you, Eric.
Awesome. Thank you. Very quickly, before we move on to next steps, we'll just go over the action items that we have so far today to confirm that with a group. And if there are any clarification we need, we'll do that now. So we have just a few action items today.
I think CARB and Caltrans also.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You're right. I'm so sorry for skipping that. Okay, so let's finish up with the updates. Jennifer from CARB will provide updates, and then we'll do Caltrans.
Hi, everyone. So just a couple of quick updates. April 1st, we have our AB 617 consultation group. The meeting will be going over chapters 5 and 6 of the People's Blueprint. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and tune in. And then our second event is on March 30th. We will be having our second public workshop on the 3-year plan for light duty vehicles and clean transportation equity investments. So those are our updates, and Brian will post the links if you're interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Are there any questions or comments for CARB? Okay, and then our last agency update will be Caltrans. Is there any updates?
Yeah, hi everyone. This is Dave Pudi with Caltrans. As far as projects are concerned, I know the El Dorado to Clinton Rehab presentation was given last month, but no new updates since then. And then we're still moving forward with the South Fresno 99 corridor project. That is still in its environmental stage. And then one other thing I would like to share that what we're doing here in the district is we've been asked by our Caltrans headquarters to nominate alternative fuel corridors. And State Route 99 has already been nominated as an alternative fuel corridor, and which what that means is that any proposed or even existing alternative fuel stations, whether it's EV, CNG, propane, etc., will be eligible for a new funding source derived from the infrastructure bill, which is titled the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Grant Funding. They're still working on the guidance that should be coming out here pretty soon. So be on the lookout for a notice of funding opportunity. And finally, State Route 180 is not classified as an alternative fuel corridor. And here in the district, I do plan on nominating that so we can get that on the map. And this way, any proposed projects within that corridor could apply for this future funding. And this is pertains to metropolitan planning organizations, local, the cities, counties. Anyway, I just wanted to give that a quick update. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Are there any questions regarding the update from Caltrans or comments? All right, thank you. And then I do just want to point folks to the chat. Brian shared a link to the AB 617 consultation group meeting that'll be happening on April 1st, if you can attend. And then the second public workshop is on there as well. All right. There are no more questions or comments, then we'll go to wrap up and next steps.
I did want to make space in case anyone else has an event happening. I know there's many community-based organizations that are within the boundaries. if you have any events that you'd like to plug, this would be the time.
Ed, I see your hand is up. Go for it.
I just want to make sure I understand. Next meeting, we're going to go over the stationary source project that Genevieve worked so hard on.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, we'll go over the next agenda setting meeting really shortly. But I think Amy was just inviting folks if they had any announcements that they wanted to share within the AB 617 Fresno boundary.
I'm sorry, I just had a question.
No worries. No. That was sort of my fault. We skipped to the next agenda item. So yeah, we'll go over the agenda topics shortly. Laura, I see your hand is up. We'll save the public comments for after when we open it up to public comments. You can also feel free to add your question or comment into the chat. Okay, so we'll wrap up with reviewing action items. We have just a few from today, and then we'll talk about the agenda setting meeting and suggested topics. So like I said, we only have a few items that were brought up today for action items. First one, Air District will connect with Fresno Unified School District to clarify the status of current air filtration system and outreach to families. Are there any questions or corrections to this action item?
Hey, Jem, since there's 3 school districts that are within AB 617, I would probably change that to we'll connect with school districts in the boundaries.
Within the boundaries, that makes more sense. Awesome. Thank you, Ryan.
And just, there are actually 5 school districts because 2 of them just have 1 school. So.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next action item, this is sort of an optional action item. The CSC will complete the participatory budgeting survey by April 4th. As a reminder, this is sort of just a supplement to today's discussion in case something else comes to mind that you want to talk about or ask for the May budget discussion meeting. So we'll send that survey out next week. Again, it's optional and just another option for you all to submit your questions or comments. And we'll leave it open for a couple weeks. So please be on the lookout for that in your email. And then lastly, we have Air District will be releasing a draft RFP for many AB 617 grants to CSC for feedback. Do we have a timeline on that, or is that still to be determined?
The plan is to hopefully get it out. And it's not really an RFP, just so you know, it's more just an application. Okay. Like it's not it's more just like, hey, what do you think of this application? Let us know, and then we're going to post it and let you share it as appropriate. And people will be able to apply on a continuing basis. So I hope to have it out by May. What? Not May. What month are we in?
We're in March, mid-March.
Let's say by March 30th.
By end of March.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any questions or comments with any of the action items we just listed tonight? Lastly, are there any action items missing or that you'd like to add? Ed, I see your hand is up.
Thank you. I hope this is the right time. I was just looking at previous updated action item trackers for our stationary source. And one of the things I had asked is, out of fairness and equity, that we provide that the business be notified that there'll be discussion and that they have an opportunity to participate and answer any questions. I did not see that in any of the action items, or it dropped off. I'd like to see that back on if we could, please.
Yes, we can add that. Do we need any more clarifying, is there any more clarification the Air District needs from that action item, or?
No, that's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up, Ed. We did make that commitment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Ryan. All right, just a few more announcements. So for the next meeting, let me share my screen. Regularly, we have our agenda setting and debrief meeting a week after the CSC meetings, but as a reminder, this month it happened on the third Wednesday, which means that the agenda setting meeting will actually be tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. If you aren't able to make it, it will be recorded. And again, you can submit any agenda topics or comments anytime via email or call your Air District to be sure we include that in the list. And our next meeting will happen again back to the second Wednesday of the month. So for April, it'll be April 13th at 5:30 p.m. via Zoom. And I believe that's all for our announcements and questions. And then lastly, we'll have the agenda topics. So right now, as Ed mentioned, we do already have the continued stationary source discussion teed up for April. So that'll take up the bulk of the meeting. And then for May, we have the continued budget and timeline discussion. So we have those set, but we still are opening up the space for any topics that you'd like us to include and consider. We did add the Chief Equity Environmental Justice Officer discussion that Eric suggested, as well as the area source discussion. I forgot to mention that piece. So are there any other agenda items you'd like us to consider or add to the list? If you aren't able to make it tomorrow, this would be a great time to share. Okay. Ed, did you have any specific questions around the stationary source discussion? I know you mentioned it earlier, but were you just confirming that that's what we'll be talking about next month?
No, the only comment, and thank you for re-asking, Jen, was the business component of it, and I appreciate your follow-up. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know there wasn't much clarity other than the discussion item, but I would like to look at if the staff could bring back an analysis of other positions similar or like across the state, and then salary ranges relative to the market, and then as well as funding. So internal funding, external funding, possible funding sources as we move into budget conversations.
Thank you, Eric. For that first part, I just want to make sure it's clear for who that was directed to. Was that for the Air District to conduct? Was that a request for the Air District to conduct that analysis on that position?
Yes.
Okay. I'm looking to the Air District team. Do you have any clarifying questions around that request? Or is this something we need to have an offline discussion about?
No, I think Eric made it clear, and we can always follow up with Eric if we have any questions.
Sounds good. Awesome. Thank you, Eric. Are there any other agenda items you'd like us to consider? All right. I think with that said, we can open it up to public comments. Laura, your hand is up. Please go for it.
Oh, yes. My nose detected a very toxic fine dust inside the library at Edison High. And then when I got my air monitor, I was monitoring. I found really higher than background readings for PM 2.5 downwind of the Foster Farms, the chicken, something that the chicken factory or some buildings, some industry is right in that complex. And kind of that's upwind and the Edison High is downwind of there. So I really think there's something out there. It makes me very dizzy when I breathe it. I was in faint in the library. It was so bad. I thought it was, oh yeah, I think you can distribute PM 2.5 masks, especially for people that do active stuff like bicycling in those areas, or in the school itself, in the library itself. And the second thing, would you like me to monitor for hexaval and chromium dust? I still have my equipment. I can find, I just got to get a reader for it so we don't argue about whether it's positive or negative. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Laura. I appreciate your public testimony. Are there others? Are you seeing others?
No, I'm not seeing any raised hands. There's also no comments or questions from YouTube or the chat.
Okay. Well, I don't have anything else. This has really been a, is it closing or are there other items?
Yep, we can wrap it up, Eric. Go for it.
Oh, okay. Just in the spirit of International Women's History Month, to all the trailblazers at the Air District who are doing this work, we want to thank you for your labor of love and your commitment to our region. And we celebrate you on this month as you continue to do the good work. And I will close out with a thank you to the public for your commitment to elevating this heavy lift, and to our partners at the City of Fresno and the various school districts across the region who are working to create a healthier Central Valley. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you all. I'm not going to follow up, but that was a great closing. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Eric, and have a good night.
Buenas noches.
Thank you.
Buenas noches a todos.